Hi everyone, Jen here for Country Craft Creations, and I originally was going to just do a written guide for my cards that I made with my Spring Awakenings scraps, but a couple people asked how I made them, so I thought it might just be easier if I just did a quick video. These are the cards that I made, and like I said, I used my leftovers from a folio that I created last month. These measure 4.5 by 6.5 when they're closed, and they have a belly band, as you can see, and they just open up like so, and that belly band slips on and holds them closed. And I will show you how to create one. So first you want to get a piece of 8.5 by 11 cardstock. This that I'm using is an 80-pound cardstock, and it's I'm using this in white, and it measures 6.5 by 11. And then I just scored it at 4.5, and again at 9. And then you want to make sure you fold the larger flap in first, and make sure that this all closes up nicely before you do your burnishing. And as you can see, that's going to create our card. Next, you're going to need the piece of cardstock that was cut should be almost exactly. So you only have 1/4 of an inch if you're using an 8.5 by 11 sheet to make your belly band. So you want a 1 3/4 by 11 piece of cardstock. Now, if you just wanted to make it 2 inches, you could do that and adjust your measurements. That would work fine too. But you want to score this belly band at the 11 here at 3 inches, and then at 7 5/8 of an inch. And that's going to make it so it secures around your card. So let's go ahead and show you the other pieces that are needed. So for the card itself, you will need 2 pieces of coordinating cardstock. Most of the ones, actually all of the ones that I made had the same colors. These are just some that I cut for the video. So we have, these are 4 3/8 by 6 3/8, and you'll need one for the inside, one for the outside. These are our mats. And then your decorative papers, you're going to need 1 piece for the front. That is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. And then the flap piece is 1 3/4 by 6 1/4. And your mat for your flap is 1 7/8 by 6 3/8. You also need a little strip. Now, I've just used a scrap for this from this same paper that I cut here. And I just cut this down to 3/4 of an inch by 4 3/8. And this is the piece that goes on the inside spot. Now, to cover the belly band, you're going to take that same coordinating cardstock. And this may vary for you depending on what size belly band you decide to make. But for mine, I have 1 piece of 1 5/8 by 4 and a little over a half. It's almost 4 5/8. And then I have a piece that is also 1 5/8 by 3 1/4. And the last one is the 1 5/8 by 1 1/2. And these will be on our belly band, and I'll show you how those work. Lastly, I have taken packaging cardboard from the back of one of my papers that I had, and this is what I'm going to use for my cut-aparts. So these cut-aparts come with your paper, and the ones that work the best for these cards are these elongated sideways ovals. These ones seem to be the best ones for this. So first I'm going to ink this up with some vintage photo distress ink. And I want to do this first so that this can dry. Just going to grab some glue and put it on the back of that cut apart. And this is just going to make this like a chipboard embellishment, basically, because this piece of packaging is a thinner cardboard. And I'm just going to put it on here to give myself space to cut around it. And pull that down, make sure there's no excess glue. And then I'm just going to set that aside to dry for now. And then I'll show you how I cut those out. So let's go ahead and assemble this belly band. Super simple. I'm going to go ahead and erase my pencil marks from my scoring and such on here, just to be sure they don't show through the paper. Okay, so first we're going to take that piece that measures 1 5/8 by 3 1/4. And I did not ink my mats, just my decorative Spring Awakenings papers. And this is this one. So we're just going to line this up on here so that you have some of the white showing. You want about a little bit less than 1/8 of an inch of the white showing all the way around. And this just coordinates really well and adds some contrast to the piece itself. Go ahead and get that middle piece. This is the largest of the three. And that's our center. Again, leaving some white space all the way around, making sure we don't go over our score lines. And then lastly, when you close this, you don't want too much bulk there. So this will go under. So keep that in mind when you're gluing this piece. This one, you want this to go in a continuous. So this last piece you will have here, and you will have some white space here because this is where we're going to glue the belly band together. So I'll just put that down. Again, leaving that little bit of white space. And then we're going to flip this over, and we're going to put glue right along here in that space that's open. Make sure that this lines up when you close it. And now you have the belly band. And I am going to go inside of there and put a clip on this while it's drying and set that aside. So now let's go ahead. This should be dry, and I'll show you how I cut this out. I'm going to take my cutter bees. If you're doing this with a thicker cardboard, you may need a little bit heavier scissors. I'm using cutter bees. This is a very thinner cardstock type of cardboard, chipboard. Like I said, it's from packaging. So I'm going to leave about 1/8 of an inch of the white chipboard showing as I cut this as an outline. Again, this just adds a little bit of contrast. I'm just going to clip that off. Essentially, we are fussy cutting here. And you could also, I know there are ways to cut these cut-aparts out in using a Brother Scan and Cut. And if you do that, you can probably also cut the chipboard and just change your settings so that they are 1/8 of an inch bigger. And then you would get a perfect shape all the way around. Unfortunately, this is not a perfect science, fussy cutting, but it does work. So now, as you can see, we have this wonderful piece with the white around the edges. I'm going to flip it over, and that leftover chipboard that I have, I am going to cut that in half. You can also use foam adhesive for this portion. I'm just going to use what I have in front of me at the moment. Just add that to the back. This is going to make a little bar so that it raises up off of our belly band, and I'm going to double that. And in the end, I'm actually going to put 3 layers. Now, if you just wanted to use a thicker foam or the scrapbook adhesives foam sheets, that works just as well. I did actually do that on one of the other cards. Cut a little more of that off than I wanted to, but that's all right. I just want to make sure that I get a lift on this when I put it on my belly band, and I will. So let's let that dry and move on to the card. So pull in your card with your flap on this side, and we'll go ahead and put the inner piece in, which is going to be, in this case, this pink here. And I'm going to clip my corners with my crocodile. I like the inner piece, the lining of the card where I'm going to place a sentiment, to be rounded. I just like the way that looks. And our glue. And we're going to place this right down there. Leave a little bit of white and do not go over your, I went a little too far down, over your score lines at all. That's better. Okay. And like I said, you could put a stamped sentiment in here, or you can leave it blank. And one of the things I love about this Spring Awakenings paper that I want to make sure I mention is that this paper, if you take a look at these 2 cards here, this does not have to be specifically for Easter. If you take away the duck and put something else on your cover, on your belly band, or use a plain belly band with your own sentiment, this would make a beautiful sympathy card. It would make a beautiful birthday card, a beautiful thank you card. This paper is just extremely versatile, and I absolutely love that. So now we are going to move on to our flap here. And for that, we will need the longer piece that is the 1 7/8 by 6 3/8. And that's going to be our mat. And I'm using kind of a coral colored, just regular cardstock from my stash. I'm going to place that down, try to line it up with that pink on the inside, because that kind of tells you right where it needs to go, because it's the same height as the one on the inside, maybe just a tad bit taller. Then we'll take our Spring Awakenings paper that is 1 3/4 by 6 1/4, and we're going to ink that up with the Vintage Photo. Also optional. I just prefer the way it looks. And you can do it in any color. You can also make these cards with any paper collection. I'm just going to go ahead and add my glue to that. And we're going to place that down on our panel, leaving about 1/8 of an inch of space of that coral showing, and burnish it down. Next, we'll move to this portion. I'll go ahead and erase my writing. It definitely won't show, but I just prefer to erase it. We have our mat for the front, which is 4 3/8 by 6 3/8. And just place that down. Again, leaving that white showing all the way around, as even as possible. Burnish that all down nicely. And then we will grab our last piece here, which is the Spring Awakenings paper. That is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4, and this one I will ink. I love how the vintage photo ink looks on this Spring Awakenings paper. It really is my favorite distress ink. And then we're just going to get that one all nice and glued. And place it down. And we're going to have a little bit of that coral showing all the way around. Yep. Burnish that all nice and neatly. All right, so now you have this and this. Now take your little strip of scrap, and again, this is 3/4 of an inch wide, and it is 4 3/8 inches long, just like the paper inside here. We're just going to add our glue to that. And that just goes right down on the bottom. You could put it on the top. You could forego this entirely if you don't like the look. I just wanted to add a little something. You could put another one of your little cut-aparts from the paper collection in here. I'm doing this solely from what I have left over, like I said, from an album. So I am trying to use up what I have. So now all of this is together. We have our inner part, our cover, and our flap. And we're just going to grab our belly band, which doesn't seem to have glued all the way. So I'm going to add a little bit more glue to the edge of that. I must not have got my glue all the way. You want to make sure you get it all the way so it adheres. And I am just going to place that on the card. Slide it down to about the middle. And make sure it's nice and straight. And with this one, I can do that because the polka dots help me kind of line it up. And then we'll take our little piece here and just add glue to that back area only, just on that little strip. If you're doing foam adhesive, you just take it off there, the backing. And just line this up so it's about in the middle of the page. And press it down. And there you have it. A beautiful Easter card ready to give as a gift. Or, like I said, you can change this up and make it a birthday card, a sympathy card, use a different collection entirely. This is a wonderful way to use up your scraps and make some really beautiful cards. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I will have another tutorial coming soon. And as soon as I do, it'll be posted on my YouTube channel. Have a wonderful day.